Welcome to the StoryADay podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's Julie from the StoryADay podcast here. We are in, as I record this, the beginning of April. Life has been a little topsy-turvy for a while now, and we are sort of settling in, I think, most of us, to whatever we're living with at the moment. So how are you doing? Some of the things that I've been hearing from writers, I'm going to talk about today, some challenges that people have. First of all, just getting to your desk can be difficult when your house is full of people. So some things we've been talking about in the StoryADay community, in the Superstars group, are ways to, especially if you're working at your desk all day for your day job, and that's usually the space that you reserve for creativity, it can be a real block. Because the last thing you want to do is sit at the same desk and be in the same space and head space that you've been in while you've been working all day. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to talk about what to do if you've just got like loads of people under feet and you've got less time than normal, and talk about things like if you've got fewer people around and you're kind of going a little stir crazy, and you know what to do when you're tired, and how to be kind to yourself, and some things that I would suggest that you do in the run-up to StoryADay May. So starting with, if you're working your day job in the space that you normally reserve for your creativity, there's a few things. It's wonderful if you can go to a different space, of course. That's the first thing I would say. If you can go somewhere else to do your creative work, great. But if you are tied down to a single space, you've only got that one little corner, you've got your desktop, you can't just pick that up and walk away, then there are some things that you can do to create the illusion that you're in a different place. For one thing, get up and walk away at the end of the workday. Stretch, move, maybe change your clothes, take things off your desk that you have. This is a suggestion somebody made in the group. Clear up all of your work stuff and put it in a bag or a briefcase or a tote or something, and put different stuff on your desk. Literally put whatever makes you happy. If you've got action figures from movies you love, if you've got soft toys that make you happy, if you've got tools that you like to use, and just something that makes you happy and reminds you of you as a creative person, bring those things out. Keep them in a separate bag and just bring them out and put them all over your desk. Think about moving your monitor. Think about putting if you can shift your position a little bit while you're working. Move your chair, angle your monitor a different way, maybe put a different picture up on your wall or in front of your space. Whatever you can do to give yourself the illusion of working in a different space, that might help. Also think about having a mental commute. So certainly walking away from your desk, doing a little meditation, prayer, whatever it is that you do, go and hang out with anybody else who's in your house for a few minutes. Talk to them about their day. Unless they've been under your feet, we'll get to that in a minute. But having a mental commute between your paying work and the work of your heart could be as simple as lighting a scented candle before you start your work. It could be putting on particular music, a particular backing track or film soundtrack or something. I usually find something without words works best for me, but your mileage may vary. But putting on that particular track that signals to you this is creative time. And it might not work straight away, but over a series of days, you'll start to relax into that and say, oh yeah, this is creative time now. So if you have to work in the same spot, there are some ideas. If you can get to a different space in your house, that's also a wonderful thing. But you also may find that those tricks like the music, the scents, the sights around you, those things can trick your brain into getting into the creative space faster. And I recommend these things all the time, not just now. So these are things I've been recommending to people for years. If you have lots of people in your space, this one's just really tough, and it's going to depend on who is in your space and whether or not they have the maturity and capacity to leave you alone. If you are locked in a house with small children, that's just really tough. And you may need to dial back your expectations for your creative life. And the good thing is you may have a spouse or another adult there with you who wouldn't normally be there with you, say, during the summer vacation. So perhaps that person, you can barter with them. Okay, if they're the wage earner and I'm in meetings all day and I've got to work all day, I can't look after the kids. Fair enough. But maybe after dinner, they can look after the kids for an hour. And, this is your time. Don't feel that you have to do it all because you're normally the one who does most of the childcare. And I'm not being gender specific here because I know, it can go either way. But don't take on too much. Ask for help. Carve out a little bit of time for yourself because otherwise you're going to lose your mind. And you just can't. You can't run at that pace. You can't be on call for everyone 24 hours a day or like every hour that you're awake. Even if you get that hour or half an hour to yourself, don't feel that you need to be churning out new words the whole time. Chances are, when you get that half hour to yourself, you're going to be tired. You're going to be stressed. Your brain is going to be just firing off in all directions. Take the time to remind yourself that you're a writer. Not by going and reading about writing or trying to learn a new technique or reading about what other writers are doing on social media. Avoid social media. Take that time to just sit and chill and get bored and get creative. Boredom's kind of a luxury, and it's a place that creativity can come from. And if you have people all over your house all day long who aren't normally there all day, that time for yourself is going to be in short supply. So take it, claw it back, but when you get it, don't expect that you're going to be writing brilliant stories and churning out super word counts in the little half hour you've got. Some days you might, but some days just sitting and thinking about a character or thinking about a scenario or trying to write one sentence or meditating and just letting everything out of your brain. Sometimes those things are okay. Look out the window. Where I am, spring is springing. Outside my window, I've got birds sitting on a roof. I've got the maple trees, blossoms are coming out. It's stormy. I'm watching the way that this tree is swaying in the wind. There's a lot of there's a lot of life happening. And sometimes we have to take that in before we can put it out again. So really just be generous to yourself and understand that this is a time when you might need a little fallow time, and that's okay. And if that starts to frustrate you, then you start challenging yourself a little bit. Okay, I've sat and stared out the window for 3 days now. Today, I'm going to write a 100-word story. Today, I'm going to come up with a new character. Today, I'm going to come up with 4 things I could write about in the first week of StoryADay May. I'm going to make a list of, I love lists. Here's something I suggest you do. If you don't feel like you can craft a story, you can plan for the future. Now, there's a month coming up that I just alluded to where I'm going to be asking you to write a story a day if you can, or to make some kind of challenge to yourself to push yourself to write. And it might not work perfectly this year. We'll see what happens. Maybe it'll work. But one of the things that I suggest people do beforehand is start to make lists of things they might write about. So make a list. Ray Bradbury used to say, make a list of nouns. So he made a list of nouns. One of them was foghorn. It became one of his, probably one of the first stories of his I ever read, one of his most famous stories about a foghorn. He made, just make lists of nouns, of words you like the sound of. Make a list of things that annoy the hell out of you, really enrage you. Make a list of things that delight you. Make a list of arguments that you aren't having on Facebook that you'd like to have. Make a list of things that make you laugh, things that make you cry, just things that move you. Just make list after list after list, things that scare you. anything you feel passionate about is going to be fodder for stories. So if you have a list of 30, 40, 60 things that you've been making over the month of April, things that you feel strongly about, and just keep writing, until it gets insane. And then if you have those lists sitting in front of you, when it comes to StoryADay May, you can just pull out that list every day and you can look at the writing prompt and you can see what things on those lists will fire you up and intrigue you and make you passionate enough to sustain you through the process of writing a story. You don't have to do it all right now. You can do other things that are related to writing, which need to be done. Writing is only part of it. Figuring out your process and refining it is part of it. Improving your craft by doing writing exercises is part of it. You don't have to be writing a completed thing every day. During May, I'm going to push you to do that. But now, do some character writing. Pull up. I know you've got books on your shelf which have writing exercises in them. And it might be, look at a corner of your room through a tiny little square on a piece of paper and describe everything you see. Or it might be describe a character from your childhood, or all these writing exercises. Try them now. On days when you're just, you can't be as inventive and as creative as you maybe need to be. So prepare. What else did I say I was going to talk about? I didn't make notes this week. So I guess I was going to talk about that, preparing for May. The process that I was talking about there, the other things that relate to writing and that are part of the writing life. I talked about writing. I talked about refining your process. I talked about improving your craft. I would like to encourage you to celebrate everything that you do. Just really every step you take. And we were talking about this morning in the StoryADay Cafe that I've been running. We've get together, we're doing Zoom sprints. This will be going on for another week or so. Feel free to join us. Come to storyaday.org/calendar to find out when. But we were talking about this morning. Somebody was saying that they were having trouble writing to a prompt that was in a genre and a voice that they don't usually use, and they said it wasn't going well. And somebody in the group said to them, no, it's absolutely going well. You're having trouble writing this because you've never written anything like this before. You're stretching, you're trying new stuff. You're exactly where you need to be. So work on cultivating that kind of celebration, triumph over every little challenge. Everything you do that's difficult means you're doing something new. Celebrate and like put your hands up in the air and go triumph every time you do stuff like that. Then another part of the writing process is engaging with the writing community. And that can be anything from people who are alive and in Zoom meetings right now to the people who are in the continuum throughout history that you are part of. So engaging with the writing community could mean going back and reading Marcus Aurelius. It could mean reading Anthony Trollope. It could mean reading something that was written last week. Or it could mean engaging with the writing community around you. Come to StoryADay, post in the Swagger post from the first of the month and tell us what you're planning to do this month. Commit to coming to one of the StoryADay Writing Cafe writing sessions. There's Saturday and Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock, 8:30 every morning this coming week. Do something to remind yourself that you're not alone. And those are some of the many things that you can do to advance your writing, even if churning out new words and being creative feels impossible. I hope that you are finding some time for yourself, making some time for yourself at this time. The one thing I haven't talked about yet is if you are on your own in your house and you're sort of envying all these people who are complaining about having people under their feet, please consider coming to the StoryADay Cafe. You can find, like I said, you can find details at storyaday.org/calendar. I'm opening up this Zoom room every morning just for you, so that we can start our day with a little creativity. We can see that we're not alone. We can see other people, and not just other people, but other people who are trying to do this thing we're doing, which is to take little squiggles on a paper and invent worlds and connect with other human beings throughout time and space, and reach into their chests and squeeze their hearts and let them know that they are not alone. Consider joining us at StoryADay Cafe. Come to storyaday.org/calendar. Find the links. I'm opening up these Zoom rooms for you. I'm getting so much out of it myself. There's not much to it. You turn up. You either turn on your camera and your microphone, or you don't. You can just look at the rest of us. I set timer for 25 minutes. We write. I mute everyone. And then at the end of 25 minutes, I say, hey, that was it. How'd you get on? And people share word counts, or we troubleshoot a problem for someone. We spend 5 minutes chatting, and then we go back in and we do another sprint. Some days we do 2 sprints, some days we do 3 sprints, depending on my schedule. But there isn't a nicer group of people in the world, and you will be most welcome to join us. So here we are, from the beginning of April 2020, the strangest April I've lived through. I send you creative vibes. I hope that you are being kind to yourself. I hope you're getting a little bit of time to either create something or plunge into the creations of other people. I found it quite hard to read at the beginning of this, read fiction, and now I'm back. I'm reading again. It's taking me away from all the things I should be doing for a little bit of time. It's one of the joys of fiction. Stories are important. They really, really are. This isn't trivial. What we're doing is not trivial, and it's not frivolous. Stories are important. Your voice matters. The world needs your stories. It doesn't need them this week. So be kind to yourself. But most of all, keep writing.
Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week, and of course, keep writing.